Greetings, trainers, and welcome to the Lavender Gym. This is Raptor
And Tryaz.
and we are here with battle number 3 for you here at the gym. So, Tryaz, what are we talking about tonight?
Today we're talking about the Call of Duty syndrome. Yearly releases. You know, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. Call of Duty's had it, and now Pokemon is being accused of it. Is that true? Well, we're going to unlock that tonight.
Yeah, so it actually felt very strange when I realized that yes, Pokemon was doing the exact same thing that I made fun of Call of Duty for.
Duty.
Yeah. Over and over. And so, just for a little bit of clarification, Traz, why don't you read off the release schedule since 2009?
So since 2009, as we all know, Diamond and Pearl came out in 2007. Platinum was released in 2009, followed by Heart Gold and Soul Silver in 2010, Black and White in 2011, 2 in 2012, recently X and Y in October of 2013, and recently announced Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire coming out in 2014. That's 5 years of consecutive games. Now, granted, we did have a huge gap between some of those generations, like 3rd and 4th generation gaps, but that was for technology purposes and all that fun stuff. But really, Nintendo has been pumping out games faster than Activision with Call of Duty, honestly. Or Treyarch, excuse me. Well, I guess it bounces back and forth. Off topic.
I mean, well, when did Modern Warfare come out? Was that 08, 09?
Which one?
Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Modern Warfare, I want to say 09, 08, actually, because I was in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, yeah.
Well, hey, I'm going to put a Call of Duty tag on this, so maybe we'll get a COD head. So, anyways, we got to discuss, is this a good thing? So, and let's look at some of the behind-the-scenes things here. There have been 2 teams, at least it's commonly rumored, I need to see some official confirmation, but 2 teams working at Game Freak on each Pokemon game. Similar to what Call of Duty does with Treyarch, and is Neversoft the other studio?
Yeah.
Game Freak has 2 teams. One's usually working on the other. So when one team was working on Platinum, the other team was working on Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Then one was working on Black and White, while the other ones were prepping us for 6th gen with X and Y.
And another thing on that, like how we mentioned in our earlier podcast with Black and White 2 kind of being the filler generation, it makes more sense now that you look at the releases, because had you actually taken the gap from Heart Gold, Soul Silver, or Platinum releases and done X or Y in 12 or 13, that could have been something that could have been done. And having those be fillers with the 2 teams working on Pokemon, it makes more sense, but how they did it and just...
Yeah, and let's consider here. It would have been 2 or 3 years without a new Pokemon game.
Oh, yeah. And there's not even, people even say there's not even really a big feel difference between Generation 4 and Generation 5. But Nintendo and Game Freak couldn't allow that sale gap because...
Exactly, because Pokemon is the highest selling handheld series for Nintendo.
Gee, it only sold 1 million copies in its first day.
Exactly. Even Black and White, which was one of the slump sales, was one of the best-selling games on the DS.
Yeah, and actually, kind of going back to Black and White being a quote-unquote filler, I actually think, according to sales statistics charts, more college students actually bought Black and White than Diamond and Pearl.
Really?
Really.
That's a bit surprising, considering how controversial Black and White was compared to Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah. No, but if you look at it, a lot more kids our age back then when they came out were purchased them.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't have been the least bit surprised that X and Y would have had such high demographics amongst college students because, it's a lot of callbacks to earlier generations, spotlight on older Pokemon, like the Gen 1 starters and Mewtwo. That would have made sense. I really did not know that.
Yeah, it kind of threw me off guard. I mean, yeah, they weren't the best of sales, but still, more college-level kids and later teens ended up buying them.
And then that just increased even further with X and Y.
Oh, yeah.
So let's look at some of the, let's go back to Call of Duty for a moment. What are some of the some of the criticisms that come out of this yearly model? So,
Point and shoot. You constantly only see the hands. It's literally the same gameplay, the same maps, and yes, that is true. If anybody's ever played Nuketown, yeah, it's the same map. It's just literally a repeat of the exact same mechanics. I mean, with Pokemon, we at least get a little bit of dimension change and finally a true new mechanic change with fighting beyond the breeding and stuff like that. But at least Pokemon's keeping it quote unquote fresh to a degree and not doing a pure 100% carbon copy as Call of Duty has and will be doing until they officially go.
So lack of innovation. That's the thing that we're talking about here. And let's face it, as Pokemon fans, we've heard a lot of people direct that criticism at our series.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, oh, it's just the same game over and over and over. And I'm going to be honest. That is true to a point.
I can agree with that, especially after the amount of breeding I've done.
Especially when you look at 4th and 5th gen.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference between those two? A little bit of an upgraded coat of paint on Gen 5 and
a slight more of an angle to where it's like you can actually see a dimension.
And the full body sprites.
Yes, full body sprites were actually kind of nice.
Oh, they were nice and they made it look more alive, but still, it's nothing compared to the graphical bump that we got in X and Y.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember a lot of people were expecting 5th Gen to be on the 3DS because the 3DS's release was right over the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And Black and White 2 came out after the 3DS had been out for a year. But that would make sense. It would be really weird to have two games on the same generation be on different systems.
Yeah.
But let's look at some of those little things along the way. Each new Pokemon game, I've yet to regret. I bought every Pokemon game every year.
Yep.
So have you.
Yep.
I have yet to regret that. There's been times when I bought a game new and I'm like, God damn it, I should have waited.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I played through 4th generation and I set down Pokemon for a few years because I was not impressed with that generation. Not because of the Pokemon, because I actually used some of those guys on my teams. It was the story of all things.
Really?
It just didn't. It just. I don't know. It didn't appeal to me.
I can see where you're coming from there. 4th gen story. It's the one that I had the most trouble with, other than Gen 1's lack of story.
Yeah.
And I think it was the first time. I think that story went too far over the top with going into time and space. If you look at Black and White, they changed it back to powerful regional monsters, but not gods of the universe.
Yeah.
And then you kind of took that scale back up in X and Y.
With life and death and the guy who gets in the middle and says, hey, knock it off.
But really, a guy who's been around for 3,000 years, that's all right considering the context of what's came before it.
Yeah. Getting back on track to the what we're actually talking about here, the yearly releases. I don't know. It's almost gotten gimmicky at this point, you know?
I think it's only gimmicky if there is not enough new content to justify the purchase.
True, they have always released excellent content, and the new content with Black and White 2 that was released was more than enough to justify it.
Yeah, and to go from 09 to 2010, Heart Gold and Soul Silver were more than enough to justify a new purchase. It was
walking Pokemon? Are you kidding me?
Just a completely new region, even if it was a remake of an old region. Completely new region for the DS setting. I think the most controversial one here is Black and White 2. Because it was the same region with a few tweaks. And really, what's different other than switching around the wild Pokemon, adding in some new things, and then, of course, adding in the World Tournament.
Yeah, the post game is what absolutely sold Black and White 2. I mean, coming from a competitive standpoint, the move tutors that Black and White 2 provided, oh my god, the movesets you could create on Pokemon were just incredible.
And even as someone who doesn't do competitive, although now that I'm out of school, I actually have time to do this, so I should consider it. Especially since we're cloning stuff.
Especially, since I'm going back and forth between school, I've got most of my breeding done.
And he's sharing. What a nice guy.
Oh, at a price though.
Yeah, the price is I help you clone your stuff too.
Yeah.
But, and really, the Pokemon World Tournament, even if you're not a competitive player, if you've been playing for a long time, it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go back and you got to fight all the old gym leaders, all the old champions. I mean, it was definitely, for nostalgia fans and fans who've been in the series as long as we have, it was definitely heartwarming to be able to battle Red and be, ha, I can beat you again.
And, I'm going to make the argument here that even the main game story was enough for me to justify going back to Unova again.
Yeah.
What really, really made the game for me was up until X and Y. Black and White 2 had the best wild Pokemon distribution. It was just astounding the quality of Pokemon that you could get.
You could capture Metagross in the wild.
And you could have a Lucario on your team before the 3rd gen.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have good steel Pokemon and Growlithe on your team before the 2nd gen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the game just gives you a bone.
You even have a Magmar, too, actually, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, heck, you can get Volcarona pretty early. I think you can get Volcarona after the 4th gym, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, as soon as you acquire Surf, you can just go down and get the egg.
And it's a Volcarona at level 30, a Pokemon that's not supposed to be evolved until 64. And for good
59.
reason.
59.
Oh, whatever.
I just made one like a week
I know.
ago.
And let's just say, that's for good reason.
Oh, yeah.
Volcarona is freaking powerful.
Oh, yeah, no. But it's definitely up in the contenders with Mega Blaziken now and Infernape for my fire spot on my new team.
Yeah, and plus adding in the Pokemon that have the highest base stat total under Arceus with the Black and White Kyurem. It's like Game Freak was just giving the players some heavy guns and saying, go to town.
I mean, you saw the battle I was doing earlier against the Black Kyurem. It took me forever to knock that thing out.
Oh, yeah. Up until at Mega Mewtwo X and Y, those things were the second most powerful legendary Pokemon. So, really, that's the one that I have the hardest time justifying. And we just spat off several reasons why we didn't regret the purchase. I got it on the first day that it was out. In fact, the place I went to, I had pre-ordered that, but they didn't have it yet. So I was like, I don't care if I put money down on it already. I'm getting this on day one.
I didn't get it until much later, but I got all the way to the 4th badge within 3 hours of my purchase.
Exactly.
The story moved way too quickly. Yeah, I mean, there was that, but I mean, don't get me wrong, once I hit the Plasma Frigate, it literally took me 4 hours to do the whole Plasma Frigate.
Yeah, and
the whole arc in there, not the frigate itself.
Yeah, but other than that, no one's going to criticize X and Y for coming a year after Black and White 2. And I really don't think anyone's going to criticize Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire coming. Because, again, new region, new story, and especially for younger players who may not have even been born yet when Ruby and Sapphire came out.
Yeah, discovering what Hoenn all about. You know?
This is a completely new adventure for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nostalgic adventure for players like us, even if my roommate despises Ruby and Sapphire.
I thought they were great generations. You kidding me? Contests.
He hates it because of the distribution of Pokemon. The fact that you had to get Ruby, Sapphire, Fire Red, Leaf Green, Coliseum, and XD to catch them all by yourself. That was before we had Wi-Fi and the GTS to make these things easier.
And cloning.
Yeah, cloning and just easy Wi-Fi access, because it's a lot easier to find someone online who has the Pokemon you want than it is to find someone in your town, especially in
Montana.
Exactly. But yeah, I really guess there's nothing else to say about that. It's honestly, we think that Pokemon can justify its yearly schedule so long as it's delivering a game with plenty of content. Because to me, a game, I judge if a game's worth it or not by the hours I sink into it.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the hours I've logged in each game, I have to say, yeah, it's very much worth it.
Yeah. What is it? I looked at Black 2 last night, 295 some odd hours. I passed the 500-hour mark in X a couple days ago, actually. So, very worth it.
Well, maybe I can catch up with you now that I'm out of school. That shiny Ditto, which we are giving away, by the way.
Don't forget, we are also giving away a shiny 6 IV Mewtwo with your choice of Mewtwo X or Y.
EV Train, correct?
Yep.
Excellent, yeah. EV Train, and then also a 6 IV shiny foreign Ditto. Aww. Not only do you have perfect genetics to read off of, you also have an increased chance of shiny. Woohoo.
You know, I still only hatched one shiny, even with that Ditto.
But also, Tryaz will be creating his Twitter account specifically for battles soon. Mm-hmm. So we'll be posting that on the Onyx Tavern Facebook, link below.
Mm-hmm. Not only will it be battles, it'll be mostly for battles, but you can shoot me questions, any concerns, your questions on competitive battles, what are my thoughts on Pokemon, and I can even cover them in the podcast. Yeah, anything like that. And always don't forget, you can tweet your friend codes. As soon as it's up, that will be one of my first tweets. Do not worry.
Yeah, and also anything, if you don't have Twitter, any of these things you can put on the Facebook as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep an eye out for our giveaway. There's a link below. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Don't forget to share that photo.
Exactly. We've got a lot of people liking it, but not enough people sharing it. And you can't win if you don't share.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, guys. I don't want a lot of complaining saying, hey, why didn't I get a chance to win? It was like, well, I didn't see a share. I only saw a like.
Exactly. So, anyways, we want to thank you guys for listening. And anything else you want to say?
No, that's it. We got it all covered.
Right on. Well, again, have a great evening, and the gym is now closed.